Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Table Talk. I'm your host, Jake Combs, and tonight we're taking a look at Dune Adventures in the Imperium role-playing game from Modiphius, and I believe it also takes part in their D20 system. So we have the actual role-playing core book itself. We have Agents of Dune Campaign Experience, which also includes a digital copy of the core rulebook. We have Masters of Dune Campaign Book, Sand and Dust, Iraqis Sourcebook, The Great Game, Houses of the Landsrod, and Power and Pawns, The Emperor's Court. Now, for those not familiar, Dune is a game, is a world set mostly around the planet Iraqis, where a substance known as spice is farmed, and in the book series by Frank Herbert, eventually everybody kind of focuses on that world and all of the things that they want to do with the spice. So these basically will take place centered around the world. Now, I don't know if it takes place during a specific point in the timeline, but I suspect that that's going to be more up to the DM's discretion. But it's basically more of a role-playing game centered inside that world, and with a lot of expansions already in place to really flush it out. Basically, these were all sent to us at the same time for the purpose of our review. So let's go ahead and crack these open. All right. So here's the actual core book itself. So specifically kind of going into an introduction about the D20 system, and then the core book overview, introduction, known universe, creating your house, creating your character, core rules, conflict, assets, game mastering, allies and adversaries, harvesters of Dune. And then you actually do get to choose from different eras and the novels that are centered around them. So like if you want to do it during the Jihad, the books that were actually during the Jihad, Reconstruction. Then we have the Imperium itself, the Ascension of Muad'Dib, which is basically Paul Atreides, Era of the God Emperor, the Scattering, and the Age of the Enemy, which every single one of those books, fantastic. The overall story definitely kind of gets a bit out there and goes some directions that I didn't expect it to, which is the one thing that was really crazy is like most of the story centers around the Atreides bloodline, and like by the end of the entire story, you realize that the true hero of the end story is not actually someone in the family. It's actually a person that used to work for that family. So it's kind of a bit out there as far as the depth that they have. There we go. And it goes into Lays, Guns, Shields, the Great Convention, the Imperium today, the brief timeline of important events. And looking at it and just kind of flipping through a big chunk of it, but it's mostly lore and information about the world for the first 100 or so pages. And then, so here you can choose your, like when creating your character, you can choose, are you a Bene Gesserit, a Fremen, a Mentat, Space and Guild Agent, Soup Doctor, archetypes, and so, with the world of Dune being so deep and rich, I honestly wasn't expecting there to be so much depth to this book, just right off the bat. I mean, I was expecting kind of more of just a general overview and the more of the brief points and how to play the game more than anything else. But there's a huge chunk just to lore here and a lot of information there. Let me go into personal assets. So, basically your gear, different roles and character types, assets, things like that. And then, goes into like basically the role of the game master and what they're doing and how to set up a game. So, they put a lot of thought and depth into this. Just kind of looking at it, it's a little overwhelming just with the sheer amount of data that's just in here in this one book alone. And this is actually a campaign that's in there called for the Harvesters of Dune. So basically, most of it centers around being on the planet Arrakis itself more than anything else. So let's go ahead and open this up as well. It says to read this first. So this is a campaign set, and kind of examines what if you ruled Iraqis. Gives you some cards and tokens, trackers, some really cool looking dice as well. And then we have kind of a slimmed down version of the rules and information. Looks like some pre-built characters. Let's see, spice harvesting, and so some trackers kind of help follow the gameplay and different events going on. Some brief information about Arrakis. A report. We have a note. Here are the tokens that it mentioned. We have our map, a dueling map, a negotiation map. So basically kind of more visual stuff to help with the actual game setup and gameplay for newer users or people that want to keep things more organized. And then we have cards that come with it that cover your gear. So if you're somebody that likes to have a card showing each of the items that you have, you'll have those available. for you. Now the only problem is if you have more than one player with that gear. And then so we have the last 4 books. Let's go ahead and break those open as well. Let's see, this one actually did not come sealed. So this is going to be a campaign. We're not going to go too far into this one because we don't want to spoil any of the story. But it goes into the exact point of the story it is. Gives you an overview of the campaign as well. Using influence. And then goes right into the campaign there. All right, so power and pawns. So this is more informational about, kind of different subgroups within the world. So like specifically around the Imperial Throne, life at court, so that way when you're interacting with these, kind of what to expect, how the world is built. Now, most of these books, most players are not going to actually need. It's going to be more for the actual game master themselves. This is the Iraqis source book, which is going to be kind of the same thing, but centered around Iraqis itself. So like walking without rhythm. Get information about the planet. So that way, when your players are on Iraqis, you have all of the details needed to kind of build out the world for your characters and play from there. And a lot of really great artwork for sure. And so like if you're playing Fremen, it's got information on how to like create your siege as well. And then, so this one's about the different houses that are out there. So like House Atreides, Harkonnen, all of the main ones. The guild, managing your house, things like that. And so like in the world of Dune, you have all these different kind of fiefdoms that are basically vying for control over Dune, and by some extent, eventually, dreams of like becoming the emperor. But the emperor himself, having such a stranglehold on everything, definitely prevents a lot of that from taking place, and it's kind of the real power behind everything. House Atreides, Akaz, Hagal, Harkonnen, Canola. So a lot of information about each of them as well. So that way, if you want your players to interact with a house that they don't really know much about, you have the history and information about them as well. And I mean, there's a lot of houses here, and then it goes into information about characters and NPCs to deal with, things like that, and travel. So a lot of great information. I mean, like I said, with how much is here, it is a bit overwhelming for new players, just kind of starting off with all of this. But the only thing that you actually need to play is just this book right here. Everything else basically just expands on that book, expands on the world, expands on the information, but a lot of the informational stuff, if you are someone that's read the books and already knows the history a lot, you're not going to need a lot of this information. It's more for those that are kind of new to the world and need to learn more about it. Definitely some very cool stuff here. Really looking forward to playing the game and getting into it. Want to say thank you to Modiphius for sharing this with us, and as always, thank you guys for watching, and I hope you have yourselves a great night.